There once was a Sutherland from Victoria, tall, lanky, hitting the wicket on a length. Then there was another Sutherland from Victoria, again tall, again lanky, and yes, hitting a hard length. This was the father and son duo of James and Will Sutherland. The father struggled to get games in what was a stacked Victorian bowling lineup that was producing most of Australia's quicks at that point, but his son Will is already better. His batting helps a little bit as well, but he's become a first choice player for the Victorians and has also played 2 ODIs for Australia. That would be enough for any family, especially as the father Sutherland went on to run Cricket Australia for a couple of generations. But neither of the male Sutherlands are anywhere near the level of the youngest professional Sutherland, Annabelle. She has all the skills of her father and brother, but Annabelle is just better. The only thing was, because she's the youngest, she was hidden by her entire cricket family. And the same thing is true of her in the Australian side. She doesn't get the new ball. She doesn't bat up in the top order, but she has become like Australia's final boss. If you manage to get through the rest of the greatest team in the world, the Sutherland named Annabelle is pure horror.
As a cricket journalist, I would travel sometimes up to 200 days a year. I loved watching cricket games. I loved going to new countries. It was an absolute dream. But there was one thing I hated more than anything else about it, and it was this little pin. The thing that I need to change my SIM card in every new country. The absolute worst thing about this pin and SIM cards is when I was traveling to the West Indies, of having to arrive in every new island or country and having to work out if I could still find this pin and then line up and get my SIM card in every single airport. Well, now we have the answer thanks to Saily. They can make it so you never have to worry about this nonsense ever again. They use an eSIM app that once you install once, it is easy, simple, and cheap. Oh, and it works in more than 160 countries. And you can throw these pins away forever, because now you just need to download the Saily app before your trip. And if you do it with our code, Good Areas, you get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily eSIM data plans. So before your next holiday or work trip or any time you have to travel to another country, download the Saily app and use the code Good Areas, or one word, at checkout, and you can travel like a pro with Saily.
Annabel Sutherland has talked about how she has always hit straight. She's a very technically correct player, and she's been doing that for a long time. And it's not just batting. Even when you watch her cricket grammar is immaculate. And in fact, the first game I ever saw her bowl, which was in the Women's Big Bash, she was troubling the batters. And the reason wasn't pace or rawness or anything. It was bounce. And she is tall, but she really uses that height as well. And with her batting, it's the same thing. Her big front stride gets her closer to the ball. And then the long levers come through straight, and she launches that ball back down the ground. A look at her scoring zones in ODIs tell us that there is a whopping 43.2% of her runs have come in the V. She's a coaching manual come to life. But she has the power and skill to pull that off. And not many can score that many runs down the ground in ODIs. Last year, she scored the fastest double century in the history of women's tests against South Africa at the Wacker. That was her second test 100 in only 8 innings. The only batter with more test runs at a higher average since her debut is Shriti Mandana. And she is what? The 6th, 7th, or even 8th best batter in Australia? And this is what we are seeing. I mean, imagine getting 4 wickets on a hot day and then she walks in with these numbers. This is like beating someone in a hand-to-hand battle and then winning, only to see Godzilla then strolling up. In ODIs, she is also a beast, yet her career has barely started. Only 4 Australian batters have scored more runs, and just 5 bowlers have taken as many or more wickets at the age of 23. And we don't always see all-rounders dominate on both sides of the ball when they start out in international cricket. And did you notice the other players on that graph? Yes, it's Elise Perry and Ash Gardner. Perry batted a lot lower when she came in, and Gardner was more of a hitter. Sutherland has come in at this level and really never even stuttered. She batted at 9 once and then has been top 7 ever since. She's always bowled for them, even if she was fighting for overs against the other best bowlers in the world. The Australian all-rounder had a significant impact across all 3 formats last year, despite not getting a lot of chances up the order or with the new ball. Her issue is not trying to beat the opposition, because obviously that usually happens. It is fighting for a spot up the order or to deliver more balls. Yet she's still standing out. Batting at number 7, Sutherland brought up her first ODI 50 against England in 2023, in her 9th innings. Just over a week later, she was opening the batting, and she made a ton. So it's very possible that on a worse team, she'd already look a lot better than she is. Since the ODI series against India earlier this summer, she's gotten consistent chances at number 5. She made back-to-back tons against India and New Zealand, coming in at 3 for 72 and 3 for 107. The opposition is probably hoping she gets hidden down the order again. She has a true average of 19 and a strike rate of 14 since the start of 2023, with her nearest neighbours on this graph being Amy Jones, Elise Perry, Beth Mooney, Jemima Rodriguez, and Harmanpreet Kaur. Those are some of the top players in their world for their respective roles, many of them in their prime. She's doing this at 23 as an all-rounder. Her highest true average is against left-arm finger spin, though she still strikes at 28 less than expected. She scores the quickest against right-arm finger spin and is very good against wrist spin as well. But most crucially, her true average is above 20 against right-arm pace. And when she's bowling, only South Africa's Shabnim Ismail has a better true wickets record than her. The Australian all-rounder concedes 0.4 runs per over less than par. These are incredible numbers for an all-rounder who bowls about 5 overs per game. So either she's getting the best of the overs available, which is pretty unlikely, or she could actually be doing more damage with the ball if they just fully unleashed her. But this is the kicker. She has never bowled 10 overs in an ODI. I mean, that means she's a 5th or 6th bowler who takes wickets like the best strike bowler in the game, and they don't even let her bowl out. But she delivers about 17 balls per match in T20 cricket. From 2021 till 24, she averaged less than 23 in each calendar year. In this period, her economy rate was also less than 6.5 in 2 of the years. She only went above 8 once. But it was in 2024 that she became very frugal, suddenly becoming more than a run and over better on true economy. But in the 2 years prior to that, she was an absolute strike weapon. So you have a tall pacer who can take wickets and also sometimes not be here. What kind of predator is she going to be when she works out how to do both of those at the same time? So far, she's been a middle overs destroyer, absolutely dominating in true economy and wickets. She's also very good at the death, but she's not quite handled the power play at the moment. But Australia can afford to use her when suits because of their endless options. But with her action, she will eventually work out the new ball. I mean, she's really still more of a prospect than anything else. She was very decent last year as well with the bat in T20. She was above par on true strike rate and true average. But she is better at staying in than scoring fast usually. And looking at her stats, she might be best used when early wickets fall in a floating role until she works out a score in more places around the ground. The issue, though, at the moment is she needs to find a position as she develops. The floating option is basically how Australia have been using her, so she may not even know what she is best at the moment. And having said all of that, she was the player of the tournament in last year's 100 when she made 212 runs at a strike rate of 138 and took 10 wickets at an economy of just 4.53. If you take Deepti Sharma's true average of 195 out of this, which you have to, because otherwise she completely ruins the graphic, you get a better idea of where Sutherland was. She had the 6th highest true strike rate of all the batters that faced 100 balls, and she was in the top 10 in terms of true average as well. She was by far the most economical bowler in the tournament, conceding 3.83 runs less than what was expected, which is absolutely wild. In fact, according to the true stats, she was the best bowler of the tournament and at the very least, one of the top 10 batters. What an outstanding cricket monster that is. And of course, she followed that up with a huge effort in the World Cup that Australia didn't even win. Only Megan Shute and Amelia Kerr beat her on both true wickets and economy. And it was at that period where we really started to realize that she was a huge attacker of the stumps. In that T20 World Cup and the 100 last year, she has a combined 13 wickets from bowled and LBWs out of the 19 in total. Stumps beware. And this is all new, showing that her machine is learning and improving. 2024 was definitely an outlier compared to the last 3 years. But if she keeps working on new methods like this, it means that her ceiling is almost endless. If you have a look at how she gets wickets in different formats, she's become an LBW and bowled specialist in T20, and she's a caught behind queen in Test cricket. Like, she has all the different skills, and she can even use them between formats the way she needs them. And as we said before, she's been one of the best Test batters since her debut, albeit there aren't many Test batters in women's cricket. But she's also picked up 13 wickets in 5 Tests at an average of 25. The other pacers in her team at that same stage have taken 34 wickets at 32.4. The opposition quicks have taken 42 wickets at 33. So she's only bowled 12% of her teams over, and she's like the 5th or 6th option with a first choice record. And this is the thing at the moment. She's a down the order batter and a non-full-time bowler. Yet she's muscled her way into the nominees of the ICC's Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy. That is the award for the best women's cricketer of the year. She's 23 and they're not even using her all the time. Now she will play her 6th test match at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Her ground, where her brother and father played, and she watched the footy when she was growing up. But it's something more for women's cricketers, because this is the first test at the MCG since 1949. This is a big deal at a huge ground for a massive player. In fact, she's such an important cricketer for Australia if they want to continue their global dominance. Their transition period can be built on her back. At worst, when they have a bunch of retirements, they will still have a team with 7 batters and 5 bowlers just because she exists. And their 5th bowler will not at all be anyone's idea of a 5th bowler. And that is the flaw of what she can be. Because of her athleticism, technical skill, and her ability to adapt, she could be one of the world's best with bat or ball, or both, for a generation. And just as the Australian legends start to retire, that is when Annabel Sutherland will be finally unleashed. And depending on where you come from, when it comes to Sutherland, Australia might have another great, but for everyone else, this might be their worst nightmare. It took God and the demon to build international cricket, but don't tell Johnny Best that. 1882, Australia had played 1 test in England against the god W.G. Grace, and they sucked. So they were playing him again, and it was a tough wicket. But England was in front, so Australia was desperate for a 3rd innings lead. At number 8 was young all-rounder Sammy Jones. After a routine single, he walks down to do some gardening on the pitch. Grace whips off the bails and appeals. The ball wasn't dead. Jones was run out. The Australians were furious. In fact, some of the English players were also furious. But what Grace said went, and the umpires had already given it. Next in was Fred Spofford. He was known as the Demon fast bowler. He was furious, and he let England know exactly what was coming next, which was maiden. There's 12 maidens. I can't count them all. England only needed 85 to win. W.G. Grace made 32. England only 77. That was the test where the Ashes began. Buy my book, Overthrowing Cricket's Empire, on Amazon today.